The Church of Laodicea. Chapter 1. The Laminator's Witness. The fluorescent lights of the UPS store in suburban Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C., hummed with a monotonous frequency, a sound David had come to associate with the slow death of his own ambition. At 30 years old, David was a man drifting through the agnostic haze of the 21st century. He was practical, cynical, and largely indifferent to the spiritual wars whispered about in the corners of the internet. He measured life in scanned barcodes and shipping labels. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the bell above the door chimed, cutting through the humidity of the late summer. David looked up from the counter. A tall black man stood there. He possessed a presence that seemed to displace the stale air of the shop, not through arrogance, but through a profound, settled density. He wore simple work clothes, canvas trousers, and a plain button-down, yet he carried himself with the dignity of an ancient king. "Good afternoon," the man said. His voice was a deep baritone, resonant and calm. "I need these preserved, laminated, please." He placed 2 printed documents on the counter. David slid them closer. The first was titled "Inside the Sixth Seal." The second, a dense, multicolored chart, was titled "Endtime Prophecy Timeline." David adjusted his glasses, glancing at the graphics. They were unlike the chaotic scrawlings of the conspiracy theorists who occasionally frequented the shop. These were precise, architectural. They mapped history from a kingdom of Babylon all the way to a recreation. "Interesting graphics," David muttered, feeding the first sheet into the lamination pouch. "Project for a church?" "For anyone who has eyes to see," the man replied gently. He didn't preach. He didn't hand David a pamphlet. He simply watched the machine feed the plastic through. As the heat of the laminator sealed the documents, a strange sensation washed over David. It wasn't a voice, but a pressure, a sudden, undeniable compulsion that bloomed behind his sternum. Make a copy. It was against store policy to copy customer documents without a request, but the feeling was urgent, bordering on physical pain. David's hand moved on its own. While the man turned to look out the window at the passing traffic, David quickly slipped the files onto the scanner bed. "Scan. Save to USB." He handed the warm, laminated sheets back to the customer. "That'll be $5. The man paid in cash. He looked David in the eye, and for a second, David felt fully known. His skepticism, his loneliness, his purposelessness, all laid bare. "Thank you, David," the man said, reading the name tag. "Time is short." The man left. When David looked out the window a moment later, the sidewalk was empty. Chapter 2. The Purchase. David finished his shift in a daze. The drive home was a blur of red taillights and radio static. The compulsion hadn't faded. It had mutated into a hunger. He pulled into the strip mall housing a Barnes & Noble. He walked straight to the religious section. He felt foolish. He had a Bible app on his phone, buried in a folder he never opened. The digital screen felt insufficient for the weight of the charts he had stolen. He needed paper. He needed ink. "Can I help you find something?" David turned. A woman stood there, her name tag reading Katie. She was middle-aged, with jet black hair framing a kind, weary face. She held a stack of new bestsellers, titles promising self-help and financial prosperity. "I need a Bible," David said, his voice sounding foreign to his own ears. "A King James. No footnotes, no commentaries. Just the text." Katie blinked, surprised by the specificity. "The Old English? We have a few on the bottom shelf. Most people prefer the modern translations. Easier to read." "Just the text," David repeated. She led him to the shelf and pulled out a simple black hardcover King James Bible. She handed it to him with a pleasant smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, the smile of someone functioning on autopilot in a world that demanded too much. "I hope you find what you're looking for," she said. "Me too," David whispered. That night, David's apartment, usually filled with the noise of streaming services and video games, was silent. He spread the printed copies of the stranger's charts on his kitchen table. He opened the Bible. Daniel 2, Revelation 13, Matthew 24. He began to read. He cross-referenced the dates on the timeline with the history he had learned in school. The rise of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. The fragmentation of the Roman Empire. The rise of a religious political power out of the ruins of Rome. It wasn't mythology. It was math. It was history written in advance. Chapter 3. The Laodicean Stupor. Weeks turned into months. David's apartment became a library of notes. The more he studied, the more the veil of his agnostic upbringing tore apart. He realized he wasn't looking at a religious book, but a coding manual for reality. He tried to share it. He attended a local non-denominational church, a massive structure with stadium seating and a coffee shop in the lobby. The sermon was about financial favor in the coming year. The music was loud, hypnotic, and devoid of doctrine. After the service, David cornered a small group of men in the lobby. "Have you guys read Daniel 7 about the little horn power? It matches the papacy's rise perfectly. The timeline changes everything about how we see the future." The men looked at him with polite confusion. One of them, a clean-cut man in a polo shirt, chuckled. "Whoa, heavy stuff, brother. We focus on relationship here, not dusty history. Prophecy is divisive. We just want to love people." "But how can you love people if you don't warn them?" David pressed, his heart racing. "The charts, they show we're in the time of the end, the Laodicean period, rich and increased with goods and have need of nothing. That's us. That's this church." The mood cooled instantly. "Sounds like you've been spending too much time on the internet," the man said, turning his back. "Don't be a doomer. Jesus wants us to prosper." David stood alone in the crowded lobby. Jesus was indeed knocking, just as Revelation 3:20 said. But he wasn't inside this sanctuary. He was outside, pounding on the heavy, soundproof doors. Chapter 4. The Horizon and the Dome. Rejection fueled David's isolation. He retreated further into his study, guided by the stranger's timeline. The chart mentioned the creation and the nature of the world. It led him down a path he never expected to walk. Genesis 1:6, the firmament. David sat at his computer, looking at images of the horizon from high-altitude balloons. He pulled up official NASA feeds, then compared them with raw footage from independent researchers. He saw the fisheye lenses. He saw the inconsistencies. He read about the Jesuits, the military order of the Vatican, and their centuries-long influence over astronomy and education. He learned how the concept of a spinning globe in a godless vacuum was the perfect foundation for atheism. If there is no up or down, no center, and no enclosure, there is no throne above. "It's a cage," David whispered to the empty room. "They didn't just hide God, they hid the very floor we stand on." He realized the globe was the first great deception, designed to make the second coming seem like an alien invasion. The Bible described a stationary, enclosed plane, a terrarium. When he tried to bring this up at a family dinner, the reaction was visceral. "You've lost your mind, David," his mother said, her fork clattering onto her plate. "Flat Earth? You're in a cult." "Just look at the water," David pleaded. "Water always finds its level. It doesn't curve. The firmament is solid. The Bible says—" "The Bible is metaphorical," his father snapped. "Stop this nonsense. You're embarrassing us." David left dinner early. He drove to a lake outside the city and stood by the water's edge. He looked across the dark, flat mirror of the surface. He looked up at the stars, wheeling in perfect circles around Polaris. He wasn't crazy. The world was. Chapter 5. The Shepherd's Betrayal. Desperate for a spiritual authority who would listen, David made an appointment with Pastor Stephen, the head of the megachurch he had briefly attended. Pastor Stephen's office was plush, smelling of expensive leather and vanilla. The pastor smiled, his teeth perfectly capped. "David, is it? I hear you've been upsetting some of the small groups with intense theories." "It's not theory, Pastor," David said, pulling the laminated charts from his bag. "It's scripture. We are approaching the end of the probation period. The Vatican is setting up a new world order, Revelation 13 and 17. They're working through secret societies. The ecumenical movement is a trap to bring everyone back under the papacy." Pastor Stephen, leaning back. "David, the Catholic Church is our brother in Christ. We are moving toward unity. God is doing a new thing. All this talk of the beast and Antichrist, it's archaic. It scares people away." "The truth is supposed to scare you if you're sleeping," David insisted. "There's a population reset coming. It's on the Georgia Guidestones. They want to reduce us to 500 million. They need to clear the board for the 42 months of the beast's reign." Pastor Stephen stood up. The smile was gone. "I think you should find another place to worship, David. We focus on the positive here. We focus on the now. Spiritualism, prophecy, that's for the fanatics. Good day." David walked out of the church, the heavy glass door swinging shut behind him. He realized then that the pastor wasn't ignorant. He was complicit. Chapter 6. The Architect of Ruin. While David battled for souls in Northern Virginia, the machinery of the end times ground forward in the gilded halls of Europe and the server farms of Silicon Valley. In a subterranean bunker beneath Rome, a meeting was taking place. Cardinals in crimson robes sat across from men in sharp suits, technocrats, leaders of the World Economic Forum, and a man who would soon be known to the world as the Prophet. The Prophet was a striking figure, a hybrid of Silicon Valley genius and mystic guru. He tapped the glass surface of the table. "The simulation is complete," he said. His voice was soothing, masking the venom within. "Agent 5 AGI has run the scenarios. To achieve sustainable control and usher in the age of Horus, the reign of the light-bearer, we must cull the herd." A hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. It showed a flat map of the world, with red zones encompassing the major population centers. "The currents of society are too chaotic," the prophet continued. "Too many voices, too many who cling to the old book. We need a shock, a reset. The climate narrative has prepared them for sacrifice. Now, we give them the fire." "And the faithful?" a cardinal asked. "They will be swept away," the prophet smiled. "Or they will emerge from the ashes, so desperate for order that they will bow to any image we set up. The beast system requires a manageable number, 500 million, the Georgia Protocol." The order was given. The countdown began. Chapter 7. The Iron and Clay. David saw the signs. The news cycle shifted aggressively. Climate lockdowns were floated as ideas. Supply chains broke mysteriously. Then came the whispers of nuclear escalation, a theater of war orchestrated to look like geopolitical tension, but David knew it was a controlled demolition. He sat in his apartment, watching a broadcast of the Pope addressing a joint gathering of all world religions. They signed a document of human fraternity. It was the death warrant of Protestantism. "They are mixing iron with miry clay," David murmured, reading Daniel 2:43. "They shall not cleave one to another." The state and the church were merging. Technology and spirit were fusing. He looked at the timeline chart again. The end of the time of the end was near. The end times, the 42 months of the beast, was next. But between them lay the catastrophe. He had no money for a bunker. He had no desire to hide in the rocks with the rich men and the captains of the earth. He had something better. He had the three angels' messages. Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. Chapter 8. The Paper Missionary. David stopped going to work. He liquidated his small savings. He bought a high-capacity printer and reams of heavy cardstock. If he couldn't save their bodies, he would try to save their souls for the resurrection. He spent his days driving across the DC area. He went to libraries, tucking the charts into books on history and theology. He went to gas stations, taping them to the inside of bathroom stalls. He went to grocery stores, sliding them behind the magazines at the checkout, right where Katie the bookseller might one day see them. He uploaded the files to every forum, every cloud server, every dark web crevice he could find, knowing the AGI censors were hunting the data down. He was a digital Paul Revere, riding through the night of the internet. Warning, the population reset is imminent. The mark is coming. Worship the Creator, not the beast. He slept 3 hours a night. He ate little. He felt a peace he had never known. The agnostic UPS worker was dead. In his place was a watchman on the wall. Chapter 9. The Sky's Edge. October. The air grew heavy. The birds stopped singing. The news anchors, their faces pale under their makeup, reported that talks had broken down. The elites, the actors, the politicians, the mega-pastors had vanished from the public eye weeks ago. They were in their holes, surrounded by hydroponic gardens and servers running the Agent 5 AI, waiting to inherit the earth. David sat on his porch. He had distributed the last chart an hour ago. He had given it to a homeless man named Elijah, along with his last $20 and a sandwich. Keep watch, David had told him. Now the sirens began. A mournful mechanical wail that rose from the city center, echoing off the low clouds. David didn't run. He didn't scream. He walked back into his house and sat in his favorite chair. He picked up the King James Bible, now worn and battered, the pages crinkled from use. He turned to Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. He thought of the flat, enclosed earth, God's footstool. He wasn't on a spinning ball hurling through a void. He was in a room, and the Father was just upstairs. Chapter 10. The Peace of the Dust. The sky turned white. It wasn't the sun. It was the heat of man's arrogance, unleashed to clear the board for the dragon. As the shockwave approached, tearing through the illusion of the Laodicean age, David didn't feel fear. He felt a profound sense of completion. He had received the baton from the tall black stranger, and he had run his leg of the race. The windows shattered, the walls dissolved. Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. David closed his eyes. The roar consumed him, and then instantly there was silence. Not the silence of nothingness, but the silence of a sleep waiting for the trumpet. His breath returned to the Creator. His body returned to the dust, to wait. 2 weeks later, the dust hung thick in the air, blotting out the sun. The world was gray, broken, and silent. In the ruins of a bookstore, a section of the roof had held. In the basement, a group of survivors huddled around a camping lantern. They were hungry, terrified, and covered in ash. Katie, the woman who had sold David his Bible years ago, was among them. She was rummaging through a box of supplies someone had dragged in from the street. Her hand brushed against something stiff, a laminated sheet of paper. It had been tucked into a crate of water bottles. She pulled it out. The lamination was scratched, but the colors were vivid. Endtime Prophecy Timeline. She stared at it. She traced the line from Babylon to the population reset. Her finger trembled as she moved to the next section. The 42 months, the mark of the beast. "What is that?" a survivor whispered, leaning in. Katie looked at the chart, then at the terrified faces around her. She remembered the young man who had bought the Bible, the intensity in his eyes. "It's a map," Katie said. "It tells us where we are, and it tells us what's coming next." She propped the chart up against a pile of rubble. "Listen to me," she said. "We have to be ready. The real war is just beginning." Under the cracked firmament, amidst the radioactive ruins of the old world, the remnant began to study. The time of the end was over. The end times had begun.
For more Bible-based end-time prophecy dramas to strengthen your faith and the faith of others, help spread the word by supporting the channel. Please like, subscribe, and share.